I'm Delilah Chambers, 32, standing in my in-law's backyard watching my sister-in-law Bianca gather everyone around for her announcement. The familiar knot in my stomach tightens as I see her vindictive smile. 10 years of being the unwanted stepdaughter and she still finds ways to hurt me. What they don't know is that while they're about to publicly humiliate me, I'm holding documents showing I own my father-in-law's failing company. Sometimes justice isn't about destruction. It's about teaching people the cost of cruelty. Before I tell you how I turned the tables on my in-law's hatred, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever dealt with toxic family members. Growing up as Harrison Chambers' stepdaughter was like living as a servant in someone else's house. From the day Mom married him when I was 15, it was clear I would never be family. Bianca is 3 years younger than me, but as his biological daughter, she's always been the princess while I remained the outsider. Their home in suburban Connecticut screamed old money despite Harrison's struggling business. He owned a mid-sized manufacturing company while Patricia played the perfect housewife. They raised Bianca with entitled values: take what you want, appearances matter most, blood is everything. Those lessons never applied to me. I was always the practical one. While Bianca spent her allowance on designer makeup and trendy clothes, I worked part-time jobs to save for college. My room was sparse, my grades were perfect, and I had escape plans before I graduated high school. Nothing flashy, just desperate determination. Bianca developed expensive tastes from birth. She demanded designer labels, exotic trips, and constant worship. Where I saw survival in hard work and planning, Bianca focused on manipulation and immediate gratification. She wasn't just spoiled as a child, she was cruel and calculating. The first time I remember her destroying my work was sophomore year. I had spent months on a history project about immigration, creating detailed research my teacher called graduate-level analysis. When presentation day came, I found my project destroyed in my locker. Bianca told everyone I'd probably copied it anyway since charity cases couldn't do real work. I was devastated but said nothing. That became our pattern, her destroying, me enduring. By graduation, the hierarchy was set in stone. Bianca would sabotage my achievements while claiming superior bloodline privileges. When I was accepted to State University on full scholarship, Bianca told relatives I'd gotten diversity handouts. When I graduated with honors and an MBA, she dismissed it as participation trophy education compared to her dropping out of community college. Harrison and Patricia never just ignored the pattern, they encouraged it. Harrison would coldly state I should be grateful for charity, while Patricia insisted Bianca was protecting family standards. They didn't love us both. They loved their blood and tolerated my existence. 3 years ago, during a family dinner at the Chambers estate, Harrison proudly showed off financial reports from his manufacturing company boasting about future expansion plans. The mid-size operation was his pride, built over 30 years with government contracts and local partnerships. Still, he spent the entire evening talking about generational wealth, detailing plans for Bianca's inheritance and executive role. Every family gathering since included his boasting about the company's legacy, though he never revealed the mounting debts and lost contracts. What no one in my family knew was that I'd been secretly analyzing Harrison's company for 2 years. My work as a corporate restructuring consultant gave me access to industry reports and financial databases. At night, I studied their supplier contracts, reviewed their credit ratings, and tracked their declining market share. It was methodical research, and while I appeared to be struggling as a home care aide, I was building a complete financial profile. Bianca somehow discovered my evening homework, probably by snooping through my laptop during family visits. I caught her photographing my screen once but dismissed it. I should have secured my research better. Then last month, through professional contacts, Harrison's company appeared on a distressed asset list due to failed government contract renewals. The moment I saw the listing, my plan crystallized. It was calculated, perhaps ruthless, but justice demanded action. I contacted my investment partners and discovered the company needed immediate capital injection. They were facing bankruptcy within 60 days without $2.3 million in emergency funding. I spent 3 strategic nights reviewing acquisition structures, consulting corporate lawyers, and planning the takeover. In the end, I decided to liquidate my entire investment portfolio accumulated from years of consulting work. I created a shell corporation to mask my identity and made a buyout offer through intermediaries. The timing was perfect. The acquisition would finalize the morning after tonight's family gathering. Part of me questioned if this was justice or vengeance. Was I using my secretly accumulated wealth to teach them about respect, or was this my chance to destroy the pedestal they built their superiority on? As I signed the acquisition papers, I told myself this wasn't about revenge. It was about showing them the price of cruelty after years of enduring their abuse. Still, something cold inside me smiled at their coming destruction. The annual Chambers family gathering was Harrison's favorite tradition. Every summer, relatives descended upon their Connecticut estate for food, networking, and family hierarchy displays. Usually, I dreaded it, watching Bianca perform while being treated like hired help. This year was different. As I pulled into the driveway, my stomach churned with anticipation. My acquisition wasn't complete, but they had no idea what was coming. I'd maintained my facade as the struggling home care aide while secretly finalizing their destruction. I checked my phone before entering. One message from my corporate lawyer: documents ready for signing tomorrow morning. Congratulations on your acquisition. A cold smile crossed my lips as I grabbed store-bought appetizers from my car. Tonight's performance was crucial. Delilah. You're actually on time. Patricia's voice dripped condescension as she approached in her designer dress. She air-kissed near my cheek without touching. Everyone's here. Even Harrison's business partners made it this year. The backyard was decorated like a corporate gala: white linens, crystal glasses, and Harrison's expensive grill. About 30 relatives and associates mingled, discussing investments and exclusivity. "Where's Bianca?" I asked, setting my contribution on the overflowing appetizer table. Patricia's expression brightened maliciously. "Oh, she's preparing something special. She has a big announcement about family finances tonight." Warning bells rang in my head. What did she know? Patricia continued smugly, "She's been researching your situation." Such a caring sister-in-law, wanting to help family during difficult times. As I circulated, relatives offered patronizing sympathy. Cousin Marcus suggested retail work. Uncle Donald mentioned honest labor being more reliable than schemes. Aunt Helen recommended financial literacy classes for people in crisis. I spotted Bianca near the bar, surrounded by admirers, gesturing dramatically about her latest shopping spree. When she saw me, her smile turned predatory. "Delilah," she called loudly. "I was just telling everyone about market volatility. Smart families diversify before economic disasters strike certain ventures." Her pointed stare made my hands clench. Several relatives nodded knowingly, clearly briefed on my supposed ruin. Harrison's booming voice called everyone to dinner. I took my assigned seat, naturally at the far end, away from family. Bianca sat beside Harrison like a princess, while Patricia fussed over her. "So Delilah," Harrison began loudly, "Patricia tells me your little side business is struggling. Perhaps it's time for more traditional employment." The table fell silent, all eyes on me. This was their setup: public humiliation before Bianca's finale. "The care industry is always hiring," Patricia added sweetly. "Very suitable for someone with your background." Heat flooded my face, but I stayed silent. Tomorrow, they would learn the price of cruelty. As dessert arrived, Bianca stood and clinked her glass, triumphant smile promising devastation. "Everyone. I have important news about our family's financial future." The estate fell silent as everyone turned toward Bianca. She stood with perfect posture, her expression a masterclass in manufactured concern. My heart pounded as I remained seated, already knowing what was coming but powerless to stop it. "First, I want to thank Father and Mother for hosting another wonderful gathering," Bianca began, raising her glass toward Harrison and Patricia. They beamed, oblivious to what was about to happen. Family loyalty is everything to me, which is why I feel it's so important to share when one of us is struggling. She paused dramatically, her eyes finding mine across the tables. The artificial sympathy in her expression made my stomach turn. "I'm sure many of you have noticed that our dear Delilah seems different today, more withdrawn than usual." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "Well, I think it's time we address the elephant in the room, because Delilah needs our support right now." I gripped my napkin under the table, knuckles turning white. Sophia, my lawyer colleague sitting nearby, shot me a concerned look. It breaks my heart to tell you all this, Bianca continued, her voice trembling with entirely fake emotion. But Delilah's home care business has completely collapsed. She's facing bankruptcy and total financial ruin. The collective gasp was exactly what Bianca had hoped for. Shocked faces turned toward me, some with genuine concern, others with barely concealed satisfaction. The word bankruptcy hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I discovered the paperwork last week, she added, conveniently omitting how she'd obtained this completely false information. She's lost everything, her clients, her equipment, even her apartment deposit. The bank is reviewing her personal assets now. Patricia's hand flew to her chest dramatically. Delilah, dear, is this true? Why didn't you tell us? Before I could answer, Bianca jumped in again. She was too ashamed, Mother. You know how proud she's always been about her little side job. But we're family, there's no room for secrets or shame here. The twist of the knife was expert, positioning herself as the caring family member while simultaneously diminishing my years of work as a little side job and violating my privacy in the most public way possible. Actually, I started to say, but Bianca wasn't finished. I've already told her she can move into our guest room until she gets back on her feet. I've also reached out to some contacts about potential positions. Her voice dripped with self-congratulatory generosity. It might be good for her to experience working for established companies for a change. More stability, less delusion. The memory flashed through my mind. 2 years earlier, when Bianca had been unemployed for 6 months, I had quietly paid her credit card bills to prevent bankruptcy. She had accepted the money without gratitude, claiming it was family obligation. Harrison stood up, his face flushed with embarrassment. Delilah, why are we just hearing about this now? This reflects poorly on our family name. All eyes were on me. The truth was simple, there was no bankruptcy. Yes, I had transitioned from home care to corporate consulting, but I'd built substantial wealth. The acquisition documents in my phone proved my financial power. But explaining this now would sound defensive, like excuses manufactured in the face of humiliation. I took a deep breath. Thank you for your concern, everyone, but Bianca doesn't have all the facts. I kept my voice steady, making deliberate eye contact with my sister-in-law. My career is going through some transitions, but it's far from bankruptcy. I appreciate the concern, but I'm handling it. Bianca's smile faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. Oh, Delilah, there's no need to put on a brave face. I've seen the paperwork. Chapter 11 bankruptcy isn't something you can just brush off. The specificity of her lie, naming Chapter 11 rather than Chapter 7, was calculated to lend credibility. Several relatives nodded, clearly believing her detailed knowledge over my vague denial. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, I suggested, struggling to maintain composure. We're all family here, Bianca insisted, spreading her arms wide. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Failure is part of life. Though Father always warned about unrealistic ambitions. Harrison had never warned me about anything, he'd simply ignored my existence. The blatant rewriting of history was infuriating but predictable. I excused myself quietly and walked toward the house, feeling dozens of eyes on my back. Inside, in the cool quiet of Harrison's study, I leaned against his mahogany desk and took several deep breaths. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Want me to accidentally mention her credit score? Despite everything, I smiled coldly. Then another text arrived, this one from my corporate lawyer with an attachment, acquisition documents finalized. Congratulations on owning Chambers Manufacturing. Harrison appeared in the doorway, his expression a mixture of concern and irritation. Delilah, this is embarrassing for our family, he said, closing the door behind him. Is it? I replied, putting my phone away. He settled into his leather chair, gesturing dismissively. You know, I've watched you since you joined this family. You've always been adequate, reliable help. But perhaps it's time to accept your limitations. I smiled weakly. My limitations? I don't believe this bankruptcy nonsense completely, he said condescendingly. But clearly you're struggling. The family name requires certain standards. Perhaps domestic work suits you better then. Entrepreneurial fantasies. His words revealed everything I'd always known about his opinion of me. For years, I'd endured his subtle condescension while building real power. Tonight, that power would shift everything. "Thank you for your honesty," I said quietly. "That clarifies everything." "So what's your plan?" he asked, eyes narrowing. "Because this family can't afford more embarrassment." I hesitated, then smiled genuinely. "I do have a plan. And it happens tomorrow morning." "Good," he said, standing up. "Now let's get back out there before Patricia starts a charity fund for your situation." We returned to the backyard, where Bianca was still holding court, now detailing her generous plans to rehabilitate my life. I took my seat and smiled serenely, letting her words wash over me. Tomorrow would come soon enough. The remainder of the gathering unfolded like an extended nightmare. What should have been a sophisticated family event had transformed into Delilah's bankruptcy intervention. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly became career counselors, approaching me with business cards for domestic positions and stories about their friends who had recovered from complete financial collapse. Aunt Margaret cornered me by the champagne table. "Have you considered housekeeping services? My country club friend's agency is always hiring reliable girls." She pressed a business card into my hand before I could respond. Cousin David, who had inherited his wealth and never worked a day, offered to review my financial mistakes and suggest where I went wrong. The irony was apparently lost on him. Uncle Richard provided a detailed explanation of welfare programs, speaking slowly as if I might not understand the concept of government assistance for people like me. Through it all, Bianca floated around the gathering, alternating between expressions of exaggerated sympathy when near me and barely concealed triumph when she thought I wasn't looking. She had positioned herself as both the bearer of difficult truths and my potential savior, a masterful manipulation that painted her as the generous family member stepping in to rescue her struggling sister-in-law. "Delilah, I've been thinking about your living situation," she said loudly as several relatives listened nearby. "When you move into our guest room, we can organize some of my older clothes. I have some practical outfits that would be perfect for service job interviews." The suggestion that I would need her charity, when my understated wardrobe contained higher quality pieces than her flashy designer knockoffs, was deliberately demeaning. I smiled tightly and excused myself. Harrison and Patricia, to their credit, seemed torn between embarrassment and genuine concern. Patricia kept offering me leftover catering as if financial problems might have left me hungry, while Harrison awkwardly mentioned that the family could provide appropriate assistance if needed. Their concern felt genuine, but their willingness to accept Bianca's story without question hurt almost as much as her betrayal. As afternoon faded into evening and elegant lighting illuminated the manicured gardens, I found myself sitting alone on the stone bench near Harrison's prized rose garden, the same spot where I'd retreated as a teenager when family dynamics became overwhelming. Some patterns never change. "Mind if I join you?" I looked up to see Sophia holding 2 glasses of wine. I shifted over on the bench, and she settled beside me, handing me one of the glasses. "Remember when we first met and Bianca told everyone at the law firm Mixer that you were just a charity case Harrison had taken in?" Sophia asked after a moment of silence. I groaned at the memory. I was 25, and she had everyone treating me like an imposter for the entire evening. "And do you remember what happened at the next Mixer?" A cold smile tugged at my lips. She tried to impress that senior partner by claiming she had a law degree, and I casually mentioned her community college transcript. Sophia clinked her glass against mine. "You've always been strategic, Delilah. That's why I'm not worried about you now." My phone vibrated with an incoming call. Bianca's name flashed on the screen. "Speaking of the devil," I muttered, declining the call. Within seconds, she appeared on the garden path, spotting us on the bench. Her determined walk in our direction made Sophia whisper, "Incoming manipulation at 3 o'clock, before excusing herself with a supportive squeeze of my arm. Bianca took the vacated spot, her designer dress perfectly staged against the garden backdrop. Up close, I could see the calculation beneath her perfect makeup, the predatory gleam in her eyes, the satisfied curve of her lips. "You're avoiding me," she said, feigning concern. "Can you blame me?" "Don't be so dramatic, Delilah. I was just being honest with the family. They deserve to know about your situation." I turned to face her directly. "Know what, exactly?" That you went through my private documents, fabricated conclusions, and decided to announce your lies to the entire family without speaking to me first? Is that the honesty you're defending?" Her eyes narrowed with satisfaction. "I saw the bankruptcy papers, Delilah. Stop trying to save face. What you saw were old consultation documents from when I was researching corporate restructuring strategies. They had nothing to do with personal bankruptcy." For a moment, confusion flickered across her face, but she quickly recovered. "Well, the family needed to know either way. I'm just protecting our reputation. I've already told everyone you can stay in our guest room until you find suitable work. The room is small, but it's better than nothing, which is apparently what you have now." The calculated cruelty of her words struck me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about embarrassing me. She wanted to see me completely dependent, diminished in the family's eyes while she played the magnanimous savior. "I'm not moving in with you, Bianca. My career is fine, my home is fine, and my life is fine without your charity." She stood up, smoothing her dress with manicured hands. "We'll see about that. I've already told Father we're meeting with his financial advisor on Monday to discuss your limited options. I'm not letting you drag down our family name because of pride." As she walked away, my phone buzzed with a text notification. It was from her, sent to the entire family group chat, so concerned about Delilah. She's in complete denial about her situation. If anyone knows of appropriate domestic positions, please send them my way since she's too proud to ask directly. I stared at the message, watching as sympathetic responses poured in from relatives. The public performance continued even as the elegant gathering wound down. The depth of her need to see me destroyed was breathtaking. Later, as I helped Patricia organize the catering cleanup, she approached the subject cautiously. "Dear, about what Bianca revealed. Is it really as severe as she described?" I placed the crystal glasses I'd been organizing back in their cases and turned to face her. "Patricia, do you really think if I were filing for bankruptcy, you'd hear about it from Bianca at a family gathering?" She had the grace to look embarrassed. "I suppose not. But she seemed so certain. And you have been so quiet lately." "My consulting work had some transitions, but I'm quite stable. What Bianca did today was share false information about my private affairs without my permission. And instead of asking me directly, everyone just assumed she was telling the truth." Patricia dried her hands on a designer kitchen towel, her expression troubled. "You know how Bianca gets. She's always been protective of family status." The familiar pattern of excusing Bianca's behavior made my jaw clench. "That's not protection, Patricia. It's destruction." Before she could respond, my phone rang. It was my corporate lawyer. I excused myself and stepped onto the marble terrace to take the call. "Delilah. Excellent news. All the acquisition documents are finalized. We're confirmed for 9 a.m. tomorrow to complete the takeover. The current management has already been notified, so you'll assume control right after signing." As I ended the call, I noticed Bianca watching me from across the terrace, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. In that moment, I made my decision. The boardroom wouldn't just be where I claimed the company. It would be the setting for a long overdue reckoning with my family. Monday morning dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect summer day that makes New England corporate districts shine. I woke early, despite having slept fitfully in my modest apartment. The Chambers family had expected me to stay at their estate after the gathering, concerned about my emotional state following Bianca's announcement, but I had declined. I dressed carefully in a charcoal gray suit and crisp white blouse. Professional and authoritative. The outfit was a deliberate choice, one that said corporate executive without revealing my hand too early. As I applied minimal makeup, I rehearsed what I would say to Harrison. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice and consequences. In my kitchen, I found the acquisition documents spread across my dining table like battle plans. I reviewed them one final time, ensuring every detail was perfect. The paperwork represented 2 years of careful planning and strategic positioning. My phone buzzed with a call from my corporate lawyer. "Delilah, are you ready for this? Once we execute these documents, there's no going back." "I've been ready for 10 years, I replied, gathering the contracts into my briefcase. "Harrison Chambers is about to learn the cost of cruelty." She paused. "Are you certain this is justice and not vengeance?" I considered the question carefully. Harrison destroyed my sense of family, my self-worth, my place in the world. Yesterday, he called me a charity case and the family embarrassment. Today, he becomes my employee. If that's vengeance, so be it. The drive to Chambers Manufacturing took 30 minutes through familiar Connecticut suburbs. I used the time to center myself, occasionally glancing at the signed acquisition documents on my passenger seat. By the time I arrived at the industrial complex, I felt cold and focused. The building was exactly as I remembered from childhood visits, red brick and steel, representing 3 generations of Chambers family pride. Security waved me through, recognizing me as Mr. Chambers' daughter. If only they knew. The boardroom was on the 3rd floor, overlooking the factory floor where Harrison had built his legacy. I arrived 15 minutes early, spreading my documents across the mahogany table like a general preparing for battle. When it was done, I arranged 3 copies of the ownership transfer papers. "Ms. Chambers, the board is ready for you," Harrison's assistant announced, clearly confused by my presence. I smiled coldly. "Actually, I'm here for Mr. Chambers. Tell him his new owner wants to meet." The confusion on her face was perfect. She disappeared, returning moments later with Harrison, who entered radiating his usual arrogant confidence. He wore his best suit, probably expecting another routine board meeting. "Delilah, what's this about? I thought we agreed to meet about your employment situation tomorrow." His tone was patronizing, dismissive, exactly as I'd expected. I gestured to the chair across from me. "Please, sit down, Harrison. We need to discuss the future of Chambers Manufacturing." He remained standing, irritation flickering across his face. "I don't have time for games. If you're here to beg for money after yesterday's humiliation, the answer is no." "I'm not here to beg," I said quietly, sliding the ownership documents across the table. "I'm here to inform you that as of this morning, I own 65% of Chambers Manufacturing." His face went white as he scanned the first page. "This is impossible. These documents. Where did you get these? Your company's been hemorrhaging money for 18 months. Failed government contracts, supplier defaults, mounting debt. I've been tracking your financial decline for 2 years, waiting for the perfect moment." I leaned back in my chair, savoring his shock. "Yesterday, when you called me the family embarrassment, you sealed your fate." Harrison sank into the chair, his hands shaking as he flipped through pages of legal documentation. "You can't. This isn't legal. I built this company. And you ran it into the ground. Check page 12. Your personal guarantees on company debt make you liable for $3.2 million. Your choice: accept my buyout offer and remain as general manager, or face personal bankruptcy when I call those loans." The silence stretched between us, filled only by the distant hum of factory machinery. Harrison's face cycled through disbelief, rage, and finally, defeated comprehension. "How?" he whispered. I smiled coldly. "While you were treating me like hired help, I was building real wealth as a corporate restructuring consultant. While Bianca was posting fake success on social media, I was learning how to destroy companies like yours." I stood up, smoothing my suit jacket. "Yesterday you said I was a charity case. Today, you work for me." At 10:15, I texted Bianca, "Change of plans. Meet me at Chambers Manufacturing, boardroom level. We need to discuss your father's employment situation." "What are you talking about?" She replied immediately. "Just get here. Your family's future depends on it." I made a pot of coffee in the executive kitchen and brought 2 mugs back to the boardroom. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, and I could see employees beginning their shifts below. Despite the confrontation to come, I felt a profound sense of completion. At precisely 10:42, Bianca was perpetually late. I heard a car pull into the corporate parking lot. Through the boardroom windows, I spotted her white Mercedes convertible sliding into a visitor space. She emerged looking confused, checking her phone as if confirming the address. Her confusion deepened as she approached the building, taking in the Chambers Manufacturing signage with a puzzled expression. When the receptionist escorted her to the boardroom, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together. "Delilah, what are you doing here? Why are we meeting at Father's company?" She entered wearing designer heels and a business casual outfit, looking wildly out of place in the industrial setting. I gestured to the chair across from me. Have a seat? Coffee? She remained standing, looking increasingly perplexed. Seriously, what is this about? Are you applying for a job here? I took a sip of my coffee, savoring the moment. You don't recognize the significance of this location? That's surprising, considering how many times you've talked about inheriting this company someday. Her eyes widened as recognition dawned. She spun around, taking in the boardroom with new awareness. This is Father's executive conference room. Where he makes all the major decisions. He used to make decisions here. I slid the ownership documents across the table. Would you like to review the paperwork? She stared at the contracts, then at me, comprehension slowly replacing confusion. You bought Father's company? How? You're bankrupt. And there it was. The explicit admission that she knew her public announcement had been a lie. That's what I wanted to discuss with you, Bianca. I'm not bankrupt. I never was. Bianca stood frozen beside the conference table, her gaze darting between the legal documents and my face. The carefully constructed narrative she'd created, of her superior family rescuing their failing charity case, was crumbling before her eyes. But I saw the bankruptcy paperwork, she insisted, her voice losing its usual confidence. The documents you found were corporate restructuring analyses I was conducting on various companies, including this one. I tapped the acquisition papers. Harrison's business has been failing for 18 months. I've been positioning myself to buy it. She sank into the leather chair across from me, designer purse clutched like a shield. So you're not moving into our guest room? No, Bianca. I never was. But why did you let me tell everyone? Let you? I interrupted, feeling a surge of cold anger. You fabricated information about my finances, announced false conclusions to our entire family without speaking to me, and positioned yourself as my savior. I didn't let you do anything. She had the grace to look momentarily embarrassed, but it quickly shifted to defensiveness. I was protecting our family's reputation. I was trying to help. Were you? Or were you enjoying watching me humiliated while positioning yourself as the generous family member stepping in to save the charity case? Her silence was answer enough. I continued, more coldly, Bianca, we need to address this pattern between us. It's been going on since I joined this family, and I've endured it by staying quiet. That ends today. She looked out the windows at the factory floor, avoiding my gaze. What pattern? You're the one who's always been the outsider. The charity case, the stepdaughter, the one who doesn't really belong. Do you have any idea what it's like having to accept you as family? The honesty of her cruelty was almost refreshing. Your charity case? Bianca, I've spent 10 years watching you live off your parents while contributing nothing, taking credit for achievements that weren't yours, and treating me like hired help while I quietly built real wealth. That's not true. Her protest sounded hollow even to her own ears. Isn't it? Let's examine yesterday. You had the perfect opportunity to discuss your concerns about my finances privately. Instead, you chose to announce fabricated information to the entire family in the most humiliating way possible. Why? She stared at her manicured nails, uncharacteristically silent. I continued methodically, it's because you've built your identity around being superior to me. When you found those documents, you saw an opportunity to cement that hierarchy permanently. A flash of anger crossed her face. It's not fair, she snapped. You have no right to success. You're not even real family. You just married in and started acting like you belonged. Actually, I earned my place, I replied calmly. The difference is that I don't measure my worth by putting others down. I gestured to the contracts. And for the record, acquiring this company was financially complex. I liquidated my entire investment portfolio and took significant risks to make it happen. She stared at the documents, fear creeping into her voice. Then why did you do it? I gestured around the boardroom. Partly as a business investment. Manufacturing companies can be profitable with proper management. I paused, deciding to be completely honest. And partly to teach your family about consequences. When Harrison called me the family embarrassment yesterday, something in me decided to show him exactly who he was dealing with. To my surprise, genuine fear flickered across her face. That's actually terrifying, Delilah. calculating but terrifying. The moment of raw honesty broke through her usual performance. I smiled coldly. I prefer to think of it as strategic justice. So what happens now? She asked, gesturing around the boardroom. You bought our family company despite us? Are you going to destroy it, or is this your way of controlling our lives? It was the question I'd been considering since finalizing the acquisition. That depends on your family, Bianca. I didn't buy this company just to destroy it. I bought it because I'm tired of being treated as less than human, and something needed to change fundamentally. I stood up and walked to the windows overlooking the factory floor. The truth is, I could have stayed silent and continued being your family's charity case. But yesterday showed me that your cruelty has no limits. Harrison needs to learn that actions have consequences. When I turned back, Bianca was watching me with an expression I'd never seen, genuine fear mixed with grudging respect. What do you want from us? She asked quietly. Honesty, I said simply. Complete honesty, starting now. Why did you announce my supposed bankruptcy to the family? She sighed deeply, setting her purse aside. Because you were getting too comfortable. You were starting to act like you actually belonged in our family. And I found what I thought was proof that you were just a fraud after all. The raw admission hung between us. It was perhaps the first completely honest thing she'd said to me in years. Thank you for that honesty, I said softly. Now, here's what's going to happen. Are you going to fire Father? She asked, voice trembling. That depends on him. I replied. Harrison can remain as general manager if he treats me with the respect due to his employer. But the days of treating me like hired help are over permanently. I sat back down across from her. Bianca, your father's company was 3 months from bankruptcy. Your family's financial security was an illusion built on debt and pride. Easy for you to say when you're winning, she muttered, but without her usual venom. Am I winning? I asked. I spent 10 years enduring daily humiliation to build enough power to protect myself. I had to buy a company just to earn basic human respect from my own family. She looked surprised, as if the cost of my victory had never occurred to her. I guess we both made choices that brought us here. Exactly. So here's my proposal. This company has multiple executive positions. Your father keeps his role. Your family keeps its income and status. But the hierarchy has changed permanently. Her eyes widened. You'd let us stay? After what we did? If, I emphasized, your family agrees to some non-negotiable conditions. First, you publicly correct yesterday's lies about my finances. Second, you treat me as an equal family member, not charity. Third, Harrison runs this company according to my standards and vision. She winced at the conditions. Father will be humiliated. He'll adapt. And if he doesn't, he'll be unemployed. I paused. In return, your family maintains its lifestyle and social position. And you get to be the boss, she said simply. I extended my hand across the table. Do we have an understanding? She stared at my hand for a long moment, then reached out and shook it firmly. Understanding, she said against her pride. As we separated, I picked up my phone and dialed Harrison's extension. Harrison, please join us in the boardroom. Your daughter and I have reached an agreement about the company's future. While we waited for Harrison, Bianca sat in stunned silence, finally understanding that everything had changed permanently. I organized my papers calmly, preparing for the final confrontation that would establish the new order once and for all. 2 weeks after the family gathering, we met again, this time at Chambers Manufacturing headquarters. The invitation had gone out to the entire extended family, surprising everyone with its official letterhead. Delilah Chambers, Chief Executive Officer, requests the pleasure of your company. The spacious executive conference room was filled with relatives, many still confused about what exactly was happening. Harrison and Patricia arrived first, Patricia's eyes widening as she took in the corporate setting. Delilah, this is impressive, she breathed, walking straight to the wall of windows overlooking the factory floor. But I don't understand. Why are we meeting here? I have some news to share, I explained, gesturing to the acquisition documents spread across the mahogany table. I've been working on this for quite some time. Harrison examined the legal paperwork with growing alarm. These look like ownership transfer documents, he commented, voice tight with anxiety. About that, I began, but was interrupted by Bianca's arrival. She entered carrying a humble grocery store cake, a stark contrast to her usual extravagant presentations. She had dressed differently today, still neat but noticeably more conservative than her usual designer attire. The flashy jewelry and luxury accessories were absent. As more relatives arrived, tension filled the room. Sophia caught my eye from across the space and gave me an encouraging nod. Harrison's business partners arrived with confused expressions, whispering, "Who called this meeting?" When everyone had gathered, I stood at the head of the conference table. The room fell silent, many clearly expecting another family crisis. I looked momentarily at Harrison, then squared my shoulders. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "I asked you here today because our family dynamic needs to change fundamentally." The surprise in the room was palpable. Delilah Chambers did not call family meetings. Ever. 2 weeks ago at our family gathering, Bianca announced that I was bankrupt and facing financial ruin. That was completely false. My voice remained steady as I continued. She had fabricated conclusions based on documents she had no right to see, then chose to humiliate me publicly without ever speaking to me directly. Patricia gasped softly. Uncle Marcus whispered something to his wife, but I wasn't finished. The truth is, I've been building substantial wealth as a corporate restructuring consultant while working as a home care aide. I am not bankrupt. Quite the opposite. In fact, I gestured around the boardroom. I purchased this company yesterday morning. Murmurs of shock and disbelief rippled through the gathering. I think many of you know this is the company Harrison built over 30 years, I continued. The same company he was so proud of, the one he planned to leave to his real daughter. But when he called me the family embarrassment and a charity case, he sealed the company's fate. Harrison's face went white as comprehension dawned. Bianca stared at the ownership documents in horror. I stepped forward, my voice growing stronger. We're here today to establish new ground rules for our family relationships. This company isn't about revenge or destruction. It's going to be a lesson in respect and consequences. Bianca stood shakily. Delilah, I need to apologize to everyone here. What I said about her finances was completely wrong. I was jealous and cruel, and I'm sorry. The authenticity of her fear was obvious to everyone. This wasn't the performative Bianca we were used to. This was someone who had just lost everything. Harrison was the first to respond, his voice cracking with emotion. Delilah, we had no idea you were capable of this. This kind of strategic thinking. It's impressive. The tension in the room slowly shifted into uncomfortable admiration. Relatives approached us, some to express amazement, others to quietly admit they'd always suspected our family dynamics were unhealthy. Sophia gave me a professional nod, whispering, "Brilliant execution," in my ear. In the months that followed, change happened swiftly and permanently. Old patterns were impossible to maintain when the power structure had shifted so dramatically. Harrison learned to address me as Ms. Chambers and submit reports on schedule. Bianca discovered what real work felt like in the company's entry-level positions. With my oversight, Chambers manufacturing became profitable again. I implemented modern management practices and ethical labor standards. Harrison grudgingly admitted the company was better than it had ever been under his sole leadership. Patricia began treating me with genuine respect rather than condescending tolerance. She even started asking my opinion on family decisions, something that would have been unthinkable before. The corporate headquarters became exactly what I'd intended, a symbol of merit over blood, achievement over inheritance. Harrison's business partners celebrated quarterly meetings there. Industry leaders sought my advice on manufacturing efficiency. During one quarterly review, as Harrison presented improved profit margins to the board, he turned to me. You could have destroyed this company completely. You had every right to, after how we treated you." I considered this, reviewing the financial reports. That was never the goal. I was angry when I made the acquisition, yes. But ultimately, I wanted to prove that competence matters more than bloodline. "Well, it worked," he said with grudging respect. Nothing humbles a person quite like watching their charity case become their boss. The remarkable thing is, I admitted, this company has become more meaningful than I ever expected, not because it's profitable or powerful, but because it's where our family finally learned to function with honesty. Harrison nodded thoughtfully. I've been thinking about what you said months ago, about earning respect through actions rather than demanding it through blood. I'd never really understood that before. You're learning, I said quietly. Slowly, as the quarterly meeting concluded and employees returned to their productive work, I realized the acquisition had given me something far more valuable than corporate control. It had given me genuine family respect and taught me that sometimes the most powerful response to cruelty isn't forgiveness, it's demonstrating superior capability. The bankruptcy lie that was meant to destroy me had instead become the catalyst for revolutionizing our family's power structure. In trying to publicly humiliate me, Bianca had unknowingly handed me the motivation to claim what I truly deserved: control and respect. That evening, as family members gathered in the executive dining room for our new monthly dinners, I looked around at the faces showing genuine deference. The journey from charity case to CEO hadn't been simple or pleasant, but standing at the head of my own table, I wouldn't change a moment of it. What's your experience with toxic family dynamics? Have you ever had to take drastic action to earn basic respect? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this tale of strategic justice and family hierarchy resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you for being part of this journey. And remember, sometimes the path to respect begins with demonstrating exactly who holds the real power.